Now, some Mousetrap cars are built for distance and others are built for speed. And fortunately, this one has both going for it. We're going to be making a Mousetrap car. Now, lots of students that are in junior high and high school make these during their physics classes, and it's a great example about how energy that's stored in a spring, which would be potential energy, the elastic form, gets converted into something that moves. That's the mechanical motion. Okay, so this is a great transfer of energy, standard classical physics project. Now, there are a couple of pitfalls to avoid and also some really great ideas to take advantage of when you make a Mousetrap car, and I'm going to walk you through the whole step. So the basic idea is that when the Mousetrap is triggered, the car will take off on its own. Like that. So let's see how to make one of these. You're going to need a block of wood and also a razor with some adult help to cut it to the size that you'd like. And of course you're going to need a mousetrap. Do not use rat traps. Mousetraps, if they accidentally snap on your fingers, actually won't take your fingers off. So you want to use a mousetrap. Okay, you're also going to need some fishing line or thin string. You're going to need a wood dowel, or you can also use a long straight piece from a wire coat hanger. And you're going to need something for wheels. Now, they need to be thin and lightweight, which is why old CDs tend to be a great choice. The problem, though, is the hub of the CD is often too large to fit your bamboo skewer dowel through. Okay, it's much too large. So you need to either cover this with a piece of cardboard and then punch through it, or find some small piece of plastic like the lid from a water bottle that you can glue on here and then punch a hole through. Something to reduce the hole diameter in the center of your CD so that your skewer doesn't flop around. Okay, so it's a nice snug fit. Alright, and we'll talk more about that soon, but so you need something for that, whether it's cardboard or milk jug lids or water bottle caps or something. You're also going to need a straw. You're also going to need a couple of bamboo skewers. You're also going to need some tape and a hot glue gun and a pair of scissors. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have to do first. So grab your mousetrap and your dowel, and the first thing we have to do is attach the dowel to the outside of the mousetrap. So you see this spring part here? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to attach the dowel to the outside of the wire here that goes up and over. So it's actually going to be on the outside of the wire, not attached to the wood, okay, but to this piece here. And so in order to do that, I'm going to use some tape. So I've wedged my Scotch tape underneath so this doesn't snap on my fingers, and I'm going to go around a couple of times with my duct tape and make sure this is a nice strong connection. So I'm just taping my dowel to the outside of the U-shaped wire that makes up my mousetrap. So I'm going to use slightly more tape. Okay, so when my mousetrap springs open, the dowel is going to come with it. So at the end of my dowel, I'm going to tie a knot with my fishing line. Don't cut the other end of the fishing line yet because you don't know exactly how long it's going to be. So because fishing line is so slippery, it tends to slide up and down the dowel. So I'm going to use a piece of tape to get it as near to the end as I can. Okay, so I want this fishing line to be as far away from the mousetrap as possible. This gives me the greatest lever arm, and then what that means is the mousetrap will go a lot further. So the engine of the mousetrap is complete. Now my string is still attached to my spool, and that's fine because I'm going to cut it later. Okay, but this is all I need to do now. Now let's go work on the car body of the mousetrap vehicle. So you're going to need a block of foam, and the first thing you need to do is make the wheels for it. So take your straw, and you need to either cut your straw in half, or if your foam is not this shape, cut your straw so it's the width of your block of foam. Okay. Now if you don't want to use foam, that's fine. You can use anything that's lightweight, like a piece of cardboard or anything like that. Mousetrap cars are really inexpensive to make. Okay. I actually saw one that was made out of a soda bottle one time. And use hot glue and press your straw down onto it. Now you want these to be as straight as you can, as parallel as you can make them. Okay? It might be easier to put the wheels in first and then glue them down. So let's have a look. Okay, so I have my wheels here, and I have my little piece here that's going to fill in the hub. Okay, so I'm going to glue that down. Okay, and I'm going to do this for all 4 wheels. Okay, so now I'm going to insert my shaft onto my wheels. Now, my shaft is not a great fit for these wheels. They kind of slide and wobble around. So around the outside, I'm actually going to run a bead of hot glue. Don't put it on the inside, or it might actually jam up when it hits the straw, because hot glue has a lot of friction with it. It's kind of like rubber. Okay, and then slide it in. Okay. And you want to do the same for the other side. Now, one of the secrets of a Mousetrap car is that the wheels are as straight and centered as possible. The more wobbly or off-center they are, or not parallel they are with each other, with the different wheel sets, the harder it's going to be for the car to move, and so some of the energy from inside that Mousetrap spring is going to go to overcome that friction. So the more careful you are when you first put the thing together, actually the further it's going to go. Okay, so let me show you the difference in the 2 wheels. The wheels that I've attached to the front, I've actually put really close to the straw. There's a little bit of a gap so it can wobble back and forth just a little bit, but not very much. Okay? The ones in the back, you actually want a much larger gap, and let me show you why. Okay, so let's put the first wheel on, and I'm going to run a bead of hot glue because it's a little wobbly in there. Okay? And then slide it through. And then you want a gap in here about the width of your pinky. Okay, and then you want to slide the other wheel on. So rotate your wheels and make sure that they turn pretty easily. And let me show you the difference between the 2 wheel sets. Now, the wheels on one side have a large gap in them, and about the width of your pinky. And the wheels in the front, they don't really have a gap at all. They just have a little tiny gap for a little bit of wobble. Okay? So this is important. You want at least one set to have a wobble to them. Okay? And I'm going to show you why. Okay? But before we get to that, make sure that it rolls very easily. So if your body is not rolling easily right now, you need to stop and fix that. Make sure your wheels are parallel. Make sure that you don't have any glue between the straw and each wheel. And when you spin it, just take a look and see what might be slowing it down, and then fix it. Okay? Because if this part doesn't roll well, I guarantee the next part is not going to work well at all. Okay. So what you want to do now is you want to mount your Mousetrap engine to the top of your car, and you want the dowel to be sticking out on the side where the wheels don't wobble at all. Okay? And the reason is this. When we load this Mousetrap car like this string is going to be wrapped around the axle, the axles that wobble a lot. It's going to be wrapped around that space that we've left in there, okay, right in between here where my finger is. And as the Mousetrap starts to open, it's going to unroll that for you, just like unrolling a yo-yo. And as this sweeps through the whole arc, it's going to be pulling the whole time on this axle, unrolling it, okay, until it gets to this position, and after that it'll just keep gliding. And when the Mousetrap is in the fully open position, then it's just going to coast until it comes to a stop due to friction. So that's why you want the friction to be as low as possible. That's also why you want the axle to be as small as possible. If you had a much larger axle, it would take a lot more string to make one turn of the wheel. Alright, let's go ahead and glue our engine to the top. Now, what do you think? Should we have it back here in the middle or towards the front? What do you think would work best? Wherever you think, go ahead and glue it. So I've got my Mousetrap glued to the front of the car. Okay, this is the side where there's not a lot of wobble in the wheels. Okay, and so now it's time to cut the string and tie it to the axle. Okay, so I'm going to bring it all the way back here. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and measure out how much I need. and I'm going to tie it to my axle. Now it's time to test out your Mousetrap car. Go ahead and you want to roll up the string up onto the axle as you start to compress the spring in the Mousetrap. You might want to get some help for this because this is really a two-person job. Now, you don't want to get your fingers caught, so what you want to do is when you compress the spring and you're holding it in position, don't set it yet. Just keep your hand here so it can't possibly snap on your fingers. And one way you can roll this up is you can just run your car backwards. Okay, and when you're ready, when you let go of this, you hold onto the car, the Mousetrap won't close completely. It'll close a little bit to take up the slack in your system, but it won't snap on your fingers. Okay, so go ahead and set your Mousetrap. Now to set your Mousetrap, you want to put this little bar underneath this hook. Now yours might be a little bit different, but there should be a small little catch here for it, so that when you let go, it stays engaged. But when you push this, never push this with your finger, even if you don't think it's going to snap your fingers. Always use something else, like a pen or something like that. But when you push the trigger, okay, it lets go. Okay, so let's go ahead and load it so we can try our car. So go ahead and load your trigger. Okay, so my Mousetrap car is ready to go. I'm going to push the trigger. And off it goes. So, a couple of key points about the Mousetrap car. You want your axle to be as small as possible. This allows you to have the most amount of turns from your string. Okay? And you also want your wheels to be as large as possible. If you had little bitty wheels, they wouldn't take you as far on one revolution as much larger wheels. Okay? And so you need something thin, lightweight, and large. Now the other thing you want to take a look at is how long is your dowel. Now your dowel can be much longer than this one. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5 feet if you have it strong enough. Okay? It just has to maintain its shape so it has a large enough arc to sweep through as it closes the Mousetrap. And the other thing that's a little more subtle that you may or may not opt to do, you ever notice how a yo-yo, when you wind it up, that it actually catches on itself? And then if you throw it down, you can actually get a yo-yo to sleep by having it slip inside that loop. That's a trick that you can use here if you want to. What I mean by that is you actually can tie your string onto your axle in such a way that it catches on itself when you first roll it up, but when it's completely unrolled, it'll slip, which is great because that means it'll glide. If you tape your string or your fishing line directly onto your skewer, that's going to actually break it and make it come to a stop as soon as it runs out of string, as soon as this is in the open position. Okay? So that's another way to get a little bit more distance out of your Mousetrap car. So this is a project that I actually did when I was in 10th grade, and I had a total blast with it. I probably made a half dozen of these before I finally figured out what some of the real key points were on a Mousetrap car. So go ahead and give that a try.